Hey everybody, Antonia here with a review of Jules Massenet's Thais with conductor Emmanuel Villaume, which was live from the Metropolitan Opera House. I've been wanting to review this particular Massenet opera for the longest time because I mainly knew Thais through the meditation scene, which is very well known for its lilting, gorgeous, and absolutely serene melodies with the help of the violin solo, and of course, Thaïs's mirror aria, Dis-moi que je suis belle. And much like Manon and Werther, Thais enjoyed a lot of international success, so much so that it has become one of the most performed Massenet operas of all time out of the many other operas Jules Massenet has composed throughout his lifetime. What's also interesting about Thais is that this was based on the life of one Saint Thais, who was basically a penitent courtesan, and in turn was based on the novel written by Anatole France. The basic plot to this opera goes like this. It all starts off in a monastery where Palemon and the Cenobite monks are doing their everyday activities, and in storms, Athanael comes rushing in and proceeds to tell his tale of a courtesan he saw in Alexandria who needs his help, given the fact that Athanael has been a very loyal member of the Cenobite monks and has basically lived through fasting and through self-mortification throughout his life. His choice of wanting to save the courtesan spurs him even further, so much so that the monks and Palemon try to dissuade him, but it's all too late. Athanael is already in Alexandria, where he encounters his old friend, the wealthy libertine Nicias, who is adorned by his slave girls, Colbule and Myrtale, as well as his servant, and even his lover, the famed courtesan Thais. At first, it's a meeting between the friends Nicias and Athanael, but once he encounters Thais, she then proceeds to tell him if he dares to provoke Venus's followings. In Thais's room, she ponders on the possibility of not only eternal beauty, but also eternal life, as she doesn't want to grow old. That is when Athanael comes rushing in again and proceeds to tell Thais that she should live a life of not loving the flesh, but loving the spirit, as he proceeds to tell her that he loves Thais's spirit, but she also has to throw away her earthly goods. This type of philosophy is then ingrained into Thais's mind, but almost unwillingly. But after the meditation, she then has her resolve. And during the festivities held by Nicias, which is accompanied by a snake charmer and Colbule and Myrtale singing of her beauty, Athanael and Thais make it out of Alexandria, and once the crowd finds out of what Athanael is going to do to their favorite courtesan, Nicias tries to quell their anger by giving them a lot of his money. Athanael and Thais are then in a desert, and after so many long and hard days, Athanael seems to develop feelings for Thais, so much so that he shows a lot more compassion to her and is no longer cold towards her. Their relationship then blossoms even further, and once they reach the monastery of the Mother Superior, Albine, Thais is then taken in to be a member of her nuns. Meanwhile, back in the monastery, Athanael starts to have second thoughts, so much so that Palemon and the Cenobite monks admonish him for his completely foolish mistake. This all comes to a head when Athanael has a vision of Thais, first singing a lot of seductive songs to him, and then laughing at him with a lot of contempt, until voices tell him that Thais is on the brink of death. He rushes into Mother Albina's monastery, and the prophecy is true. Thais is dying, and with her dying breath, she then proceeds to tell Athanael that she has witnessed divine ecstasy. She dies, and Athanael grieves over her dead body. So what really makes this opera are the central characters of Thais and Athanael, and both of them are not only complex characters, but each of them have their own fascinating traits. Starting off with Thais, she does start off as a worldly and absolutely gorgeous courtesan who is very well praised and very famous because of her looks and her exotic attire. But during her time in the desert with Athanael, there is something in her that just seems to blossom. A certain purity which not only defines her, but also what she became in the end of the opera. She always had that inner purity and innocence, despite the fact that she presents herself to be seductive, worldly, and not really a paradigm of virtue. But through her many trials in the desert, and of course in the monastery, she was able to embrace divine ecstasy and has therefore become one with the spirit. Athanael has been one with the spirit throughout all his life, so much so that he has become a member of the Cenobite monks, and their philosophy is don't love the flesh, but love the spirit. He has basically lived his life full of fasting and a lot of self-sacrifice in order to become one with the spirit. And he detests a lot of things he perceives are sinful and that basically drive away from his main purpose. That is until that fateful day he sees Thais, and there is a certain intimacy which grows within him, so much so that his feelings for Thais develop a lot more. From being cold towards her in the very beginning to showing a lot more compassion for her in the desert, and finally to really wanting her body and soul. But it's all too late for him, as his desires for Thais came in way too late, as she has finally passed away, transcended the flesh, and then we're left to see Athanael alone once again. So it's a really fascinating character study on how the central figures of Thais and Athanael have their own juxtapositions of what it means to not only live within the body, but also within the soul. And not only do they complement each other, but they also go through a great amount of character development. So much so that Thais may have found spiritual ecstasy and spiritual light, but Athanael had his sexual desires awakened, all thanks to this penitent courtesan. But the opera ends rather tragically, as he is forced to live with his rather base and foolish decisions. So I'm not going to mince words here. When you have two central characters as the penitent courtesan Thais and the Cenobite monk who wants to experience sexual awakening, then this particular story is one that is full of character development, and also one which has two of the strongest characters in this opera. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Aileen Perez as our titular heroine Thais. Now, much like Norma, Beatrice di Tenda, Elvira from I Puritani, Giselda from I Lombardi, Elvira from Ernani, Semiramide, and Matilde from Guillaume Tell, this role truly calls for a dramatic coloratura soprano. She not only has a lot of delicate and florid lines to sing, but she also has to have a great amount of lyricism and, of course, dramatic declamation. She not only needs the florid singing found in the likes of the Queen of the Night, Constance, Antonia, Marguerite de Valois, and Violetta from La Traviata, but also the pure lyric singing found in the likes of Luisa Miller, Amalia from I Masnadieri, and Mimí from La Bohème, and even have that dramatic quality found in Norma, Anna Bolena, Maria Stuarda, Elisabetta from Roberto Devereux and Semiramide, and of course Matilde from Guillaume Tell. There has been no shortage of sopranos who sang this particular penitent courtesan. In fact, this role was created by the American soprano who was very well known throughout France, Sybil Sanderson, who in turn was very well known for creating Esclarmonde, also by Jules Massenet. And the many sopranos who embodied Thais were Hélène Dossier, Julie Bouet, Beverly Sills, Renee Fleming, and Elizabeth Futrell, just to name a few. This role definitely calls for a lot of great complex singing, not only found in the coloratura lines, where Thais has to reach a high D on several occasions, but she also has to combine that with a spinto soprano quality, that metallic quality that is evidenced whenever she sings a lot of these dramatic lines. And I thought that Aileen Perez was an exceptional singer for this particular role. I've been following her career for quite some time, and she seems to specialize in a lot of the full lyric soprano roles, those being Mimí from La Bohème, and of course Musetta, also from that same opera, Antonia from La Bohème, Pamina from the Zauberflöte, and many other roles suited for this particular lyric soprano. She managed to throw herself in with this particular role that I was practically in total awe of everything she had to accomplish as a singing actress. She had a lot of glamour, not only found in her voice, but in everything she did. She was able to make Thais come alive as a character that I was practically rooting for her from beginning to end. Then we have the other central character in this opera, the Cenobite monk Athanael, who was sung by Gerald Finley, one of the finest Canadian Heldenbaritones of all time. And this role truly does call for a Heldenbariton, one who has the rich, full, and stylish quality found in roles like Nabucco, Guido di Monforte, Simon Boccanegra, Falstaff, Alberich, Courvenal, Telramund, Escamillo, Le Grand Prêtre de Dagon, Le Comte Obertal, Count Tomsky from Pic Dame, and Dr. Schön, and of course that rich quality found in roles like Il Barone di Trommonok from Il Viaggio a Rem, Klingsor from Parsifal, and many other great roles for a true Heldenbariton and bass baritone. And he also has to combine that with pure lyrical singing found in Giorgio Germont from La Traviata. There's been no shortage of baritones who sang this role, ranging from Cheryl Mills to Thomas Hampson, and even to the basso cantante Michele Pertusi, as he sang this alongside Eva May as Thais. This role does call for a huge range, and it's not so much of a high sing as, let's say, either Nabucco or even that of Amfortas, but he still needs to have that rich quality found in his voice to make Athanael come alive. And Gerald Finley did just that. And I've been following his career for about 10 or 11 years, ever since I first heard him in London as Golau from Pelléas et Mélisande by Debussy. It's safe to say that I've always admired his voice. It has a true Heldenbariton richness. It is full and cavernous in the lower registers, yet exciting and piercing in some of the higher and middle registers. He has always been a consummate, accomplished, and absolutely charming singing actor, and I've always admired that virile quality found in his voice. What's so interesting about Mr. Finley is that he did start off as a cavalier bariton, but these days he seems to be specializing in a lot of the Heldenbariton, bass baritone roles, so much so that he was labeled as a bass baritone, even though he is truly a Heldenbariton. And I can certainly attest to that when I heard him sing Athanael. There is a certain power that he has in his voice, and he controls it so well that he also sings certain phrases so lyrically and so softly that I continue to be amazed at his great talents as a consummate singing actor. And of course, Mr. Finley's and Madame Perez's voices blended so superbly when they sang their duets. It was just like heaven on earth. So I really have to give it to Eileen Perez and Gerald Finley for embodying these two iconic roles to the best of their abilities. But what about the other players? Well, they were also exceptional all the way through, especially when you have Jean-François Borra, who sang the role of Nicias, Athanael's friend, and of course, the Alexandrian libertine. And what you need in this particular role is a true full lyric tenor. He not only has to have the great bel canto technique found in roles like Percy from Anna Bolena, Lester from Maria Stuarda, Roberto de Vereux, Il Conte di Liebenskopf from Il Viaggio al Re, Arnold from Guillaume Tell, Idreno from Semiramide, Orobello from Beatrice di Tenda, Arturo from I Puritani, Robert le Diable and Rodonangie from Les Huguenots, but he also has to combine that with the spinto quality found in roles like Pollone from Norma, Carlo from I Masnadieri, Rodolfo from La Bohème, Ernani, Jacopo Foscari from I Due Foscari, Arvino from I Lombardi alla Prima Crociata, and Arrigo from I Vespri Siciliani. And even though this role isn't really as huge as, let's say, Pollone from Norma, or even that of Arturo from I Puritani, he still needs to convince the audience that he's not only a charmer in terms of his looks and in terms of his swagger, but also with the help of his voice. And I thought that Jean-François Borra was amazing all the way through. It should come off as no surprise that French is his native tongue, and he was able to pronounce everything so clearly and so pristinely that I was on the edge of my seat, and I still continue to be in awe of his great musical talents. He certainly held up very well in this particular role that I was enamored with everything he had to offer. He had style, he had elegance, he had charm, and he had a lot of facets which made Monsieur Borra come alive as a fine singing actor. So I also have to give him a great amount of kudos for embodying this particular role. Palemon was sung by the veteran bass baritone David Pitzinger, and what you need in this role is either a basso profondo, basso cantante, or even that of a bass baritone. He's not really a super low singer like Osmin from Die Entführung aus dem Sahel, but he has to have a lot of nobility evidenced in roles like Zarastro from Die Zauberflöte, Il Commendatore from Don Giovanni, both Filippo il Secondo and the Grand Inquisitor from Don Carlo, both Ramphis and the King from Aida, Sparfucile from Rigoletto, Procida from I Vespri Siciliani, Marcel from Les Huguenots, Landgraf Hermann from Tannhäuser, and König Marke from Tristan und Isolde. There's been no shortage of bass baritones, basso cantantes, and to some extent basso profondos who sang this particular role. If you ask me, there have been a lot of basso cantantes and bass baritones who sang Palemon, including José Van Damme. So it's safe to say that this role may be small, but he does bear importance to the plot. And I thought that David Pitzinger did an amazing job with what he had to offer as Palemon. His voice had that richness and that virility which I love so much in many a bass baritone and basso cantante, and he had a lot of style to back him up. I was completely amazed with his overall talents, and this is coming from a gentleman who has been very well known for playing noblemen like Don Giovanni and the Count from Don Giovanni and Le Nozze di Figaro respectively, and even villains like Nick Shadow from The Rake's Progress, and of course fathers like Father Truelove also from that same opera. So the way he was able to use his experience as a bass baritone, very well known in a lot of the international opera houses, was really well done. And I also have to give him a lot of credit for everything he had to offer as Palemon. Sarah Cowden was absolutely gorgeous as Albina. And yes, this role isn't really as huge as, let's say, Azucena from Trovatore, Brangäne from Tristan und Isolde, Freka from Das Rheingold, and Die Walküre, Madame de la Haltière from Cendrillon, both Madame de Coissy and Mère Marie from Le Dialogue de Carmelite, Fides from Le Prophète, the Countess from Pique Dame, or the Queen of Spades, Kostelichka from Yenufa, and even that of the Kabanica from Katya Kabanova. But despite all that, she still needs a true dramatic mezzo or a dramatic contralto to embody this particular character. Yes, she doesn't really have a lot of high singing found in roles like Azucena or even that of Brangäne or Fricka, but the way she has to manage her dramatic mezzo contralto voice is a must. And she has to do so in a way that is dignified and that makes her come alive as a true singing actress. And I thought that Sarah Cowden was flawless in this particular part. This is an absolutely fabulous mezzo contralto I would love to see a lot more from. She has a richly toned and absolutely velvety mezzo contralto voice, which is full of great musicality and great focus. She is also in the cusp of an exceptional career, and I cannot wait to see what other roles she has to sing in the near future. Diana Breiwick was an absolutely charming snake charmer, or La Charmeuse. And even though this role is reduced to vocalizes or even just a very small appearance on stage, she still needs a light lyric coloratura soprano who is able to sing all of these melismas, trills, and a lot of the coloratura work so well. A lot of singers who sang the likes of Olympia, the Fiaccrimilli, Zerbinetta, Papagena, the Queen of the Night, and even Blonde and Gilda have also went on to sing this particular character part. And Diana Breiwick's vocal gifts were absolutely flawless. She is an amazing young talent with a silvery voice, which has a lot of great agility and a flawless technique, and she certainly has a brilliant career ahead of her. Megan Marino was a charming Myrtale, and what you need in this role, even though this is rather small, is a light lyric mezzo. Any mezzo who can sing the likes of Cherubino from Le Nozze di Figaro, and even that of the page boy from Salome. She certainly needs to have a well-tuned lyric mezzo voice to do justice to this character part, and I thought that Megan Marino was flawless in this role with her gorgeous and well-tuned lyric mezzo voice and a bright future ahead of her. I certainly cannot wait to see what roles she will have in her repertoire. France Bellemare was an equally gorgeous Cobile, and even though this role is also relatively small, she still needs a light lyric soprano, or even that of a light soprano, to do this role a lot of justice, as she and Myrtale have a lot of florid lines to sing. Any singer who sang the likes of Barbarina from Le Nozze di Figaro, Alice from Le Contori, Jamie from Guillaume Tell, Delia from Il Viaggio a Rem, Anina from La Traviata, Lauretta from Gianni Schicchi, and many other great roles for either a light lyric or a light soprano would also flock to sing this character part. And I thought that France Bellemare was absolutely exceptional in this tiny yet absolutely delightful part. There is a certain delight found in her voice, which is light and breezy and charming, and she certainly knew how to play up glamour with this character part. We also had such equally flawless singing in Jung Chol-cha's Servant, and even the Cenobite monks composed of Daniel Clark Smith, Patrick Miller, Marco Antonio Jordao, Edward Hanlon, and Mark Sullivan, and let's not forget about the equally flawless violin playing found in David Chan. So overall, the singing was absolutely fabulous all the way through. And when you have such strong performers like Gerald Finley, Eileen Perez, Jean-François Borra, and David Pitzinger, who led the show exceptionally, then you can be sure that this will be an evening and even a performance one will never forget. And the conducting done by Emmanuel Villaume was equally as great. Even though he did an amazing job with the orchestra, there were times I felt like there were some passages that were a little bit rushed, most notably in the meditation scene, where it's supposed to be soft, lovely, and really reflective, but there are times in which some passages came off as a little bit speedy to my ears. But despite all that, I still have to give a lot of credit to Emmanuel Villaume for leading the Metropolitan Opera House Orchestra, and the orchestra and chorus of the Metropolitan Opera House were absolutely flawless. So overall, with really great singing found in Eileen Perez, Gerald Finley, Jean-François Borra, and David Pitzinger, along with the many other singers who sang their supportive roles exceptionally, then this particular radio transmission of Massenet's Thais is a definite must listen. And for those of you who already heard this particular radio transmission of Massenet's Thais live from the Metropolitan Opera House, what'd you think of it? Did you feel like Eileen Perez and Gerald Finley were the absolute strongest performers? Was there another singer who stole their thunder? Or did you feel like there was someone who stuck out like a sore thumb? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And do tune in later for my review of Gounod's Faust live from the Latvian National Opera. So until then, have a great day, everybody.